Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock. Time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us. Well, nationally, the reaction to the 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson has been drastically different than it has been here in Northeast Ohio, as you would expect. Rich Eisen from The Rich Eisen Show on the Peacock Network gives you a pretty good feel of what most of the national media is saying about the 6-game suspension.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And I take this approach because of the way that Watson acted repeatedly, a repeat offender of all of the women who sued him and the apparently dozens who didn't. According to the New York Times, 66 masseuses is different masseuses he contacted over a 17-month period. And I've said here multiple times, all it takes is one, and then there's 66 of them and more than 24 who sued him. Now, I understand there were no criminal charges in the 6 games that Roethlisberger got for his transgressions and the 6 games that Ezekiel Elliott got for his. Neither of them were criminally charged, so that's how you can take anything from previous occasions and apply it as a precedence here.
Again, Rich Eisen talking about the 6-game suspension. Albert Breer on that Rich Eisen Show talking about the factors that led to Sue Robinson coming up with the 6-game suspension and what he looked at in Robinson's written decision.
It wasn't based on 24 cases, the 24 lawsuits. It was based on 4. The NFL brought 5 cases. Sue L. Robinson threw one of those cases out because the league hadn't talked to the woman involved in that one. And then I think some of the language that we've seen come out is important. She used the word nonviolent. And, look, I'm not going to say whether she's right or wrong. I don't know. But, I think her using the word nonviolent is important. And then, my understanding is she was pretty critical of the NFL reacting to public perception and making decisions based on public perception. And so,
it's a business. It's a business.
No, I know. But that was part of it, was like that she was saying, like, this should be about the facts in the case, not how whatever decision we make is going to be perceived publicly. So, I know, like, the union and Watson's camp felt like the league didn't present that strong a case, as strong a case as, maybe we've seen out there in the public over the last, year and a half. And I guess the 6-game suspension would sort of back that up, which, of course, it mirrors the decisions that the league made in the Zeke Elliott, Ben Roethlisberger cases, which are similar only in the sense that, obviously the accusations in those cases were really bad, but there weren't criminal charges.
And again, that's one of the reasons that the union wanted the independent arbiter, is so that you look at the facts and not at the perception. The league now has till 9 a.m. Thursday to file a written appeal. Former NFL general manager Mike Tannenbaum on ESPN's Get Up on what he expects Roger Goodell and the NFL to do.
I believe the league will file an appeal, which is their collectively bargained right. And the league, make no mistake about it, is in a real conundrum, Greeny, because they want to empower this third-party process, which was collectively bargained, and give credibility to Judge Robinson and not handle player discipline. However, because this first case is so unique and so sensitive, with 24 women alleging misconduct at a minimum, and gauging the reaction that the league has seen for the last 24 hours, I think they're going to look at all the facts, look at the reaction, and say, we have this right that we collectively bargain, and we're going to appeal this decision of a 6-game suspension with no fine to the commissioner or his designee, at which point I would fully expect that Roger Goodell would appoint somebody to hear the appeal that the league would put on to look to add to the 6-game suspension.
Again, it's important to note the league would be appealing to themselves or somebody that they appoint. Albert Breer from that Rich Eisen Show talks about all the factors that the NFL has to look at relative to them going ahead and filing that appeal?
You'd have Roger here kind of, in a spot where, do I want my name on the decision? And if it sticks at 6 games, he could say, well, we think, like he should have gotten a year, but we do think Sue Robinson ran a fair process, so we're going to allow for that decision to stand. He could knock it up a couple of games, and I'm not sure Watson or the PA would fight that if he went up a couple of games. But then, does that really do anything? Now you've involved yourself in the process, and you don't look like you're being that tough on it. Or he could go to a year, and if he were to go to a year, well, then the NFL is going to be back in court with a player. And there's a decent chance then that Deshaun Watson would play in the opener because the union would seek a temporary restraining order and, try to get a stay on the suspension, which would put Deshaun Watson out there while the case was in court, which would obviously make it a pretty public thing for the NFL season. So, I don't know that there are great options here for Roger Goodell. And I think it's going to be a very, very difficult decision to make over the next, 48 to 72 hours, whether or not the league goes forward with this. And then if they do, whether or not Roger Goodell is the one to hear the case.
It'll either be Roger Goodell or one of his designees, which it's the same thing. So Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, a former attorney. He has been a guy that has followed this pretty closely. It's important to remember that the fact-finding of Sue Robinson is binding. So whatever she finds, the facts of the evidence that was presented to her, keep in mind, nobody other than Sue Robinson and the people at the hearings know what the evidence was. But those facts are things that Roger Goodell can't change. Mike Florio on what he has seen from reading the decision by Sue Robinson relative to the NFL's appeal and what chances they would have of winning.
The league employees who are paid by and directed by Roger Goodell went to the Judge Robinson hearing and said, we want a full season suspension. So if those same league employees then appeal to the guy who gave them their marching orders, what do we expect? Unless they asked for a year in front of Judge Robinson, hoping that the more they asked for, the more likely they'd get something in the range of 6, 8, or 10, and they'll live with it, which I don't think is the case. I don't know that, but I don't think it's the case. Then I think we have to look at the obvious facts and come to the obvious conclusions. They wanted a year before, and now they have a path to getting a year. She gave them exactly what they need to impose a 1-year suspension. She found that he did it. And once she found that he did it, it's whatever Goodell wants it to be at the next level. And there's no standard in the CBA or the personal conduct policy of deference that has to be applied to her ruling. He doesn't have to make any type of detailed finding that she made some sort of error, abused her discretion, acted in an arbitrary or capricious manner, all these lawyer terms that sometimes get the first decision a little bit more power and credit than it otherwise would have. He can just roll up into a ball, 6 games, and pick whatever number he wants. And I don't know why we would think he would want anything less than a year when they went into that hearing asking for a year.
That was Mike Florio from the Baskin and Phelps show, 92.3 The Fan, saying the NFL could still potentially get that year suspension. Jeff Darlington on what his sources are saying will happen if the NFL does in fact go ahead and appeal and up the suspension.
I don't want to overcomplicate the complicated, but by the way, we should throw one more wrench into this. I'm told that if the NFL does appeal this, that Deshaun Watson's side will be filing suit against them to question the authority of Goodell to do so. If that were to happen, we're talking about injunctions, all sorts of legal processes that ultimately could delay this suspension. So there's a bunch of complicated things out there. I'm not saying he wins or loses the case, but there's a bunch of scenarios right now that put the Cleveland Browns, when they're assessing what's going to happen with their quarterback, into play in many different scenarios.
And the one thing you can be sure, the NFL doesn't want to drag this out. They want it to be over. The question is, do they want it to be over enough to take the 6-game suspension, or do they want what they initially wanted in the year? Former NFLPA President Dominique Foxworth, so keep in mind this is a former Players Association president from back at 2012, on how the system of discipline might benefit the NFL and the owners.
It does feel like the NFL has been quite strategic in the way that they've changed the paradigm somewhat. And that if you think back to previous punishments, what happened, or previous allegations or transgressions by players, what happened was Roger Goodell and the league would put out a punishment, and then we would all recoil at how terribly insignificant the punishment was, and then they would look bad. Now they've changed the paradigm such that they can be standing over here with us, and they could be pointing at Judge Robinson with us and say, that's not enough, because perception is what matters to the NFL, because that's directly tied to their bottom line. So I think that they've done this strategically in a way that makes it look like Judge Robinson is the bad person. But after I read the report, it seemed that she based her punishment solely off a precedent that was set by the NFL. So to me, it feels odd for us to come after Judge Robinson and say, you're doing this all wrong, you're going too soft. And then we look at the NFL while they're standing over there saying, we wanted 12 games in a big fine. And they're trying to make themselves look as if they are on our side.
And it's interesting. So again, that's from Dominic Foxworth, ESPN's Get Up. He is a former NFLPA president, so a unique perspective. Bottom line is, NFL has until 9 o'clock Thursday to file that appeal. If they do, you can be sure that Deshaun Watson's side will be taking them to federal court to try to get an injunction. It means it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon if the NFL, in fact, appeals by Thursday at 9. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will look at training camp day one in pads for the Browns. They put on the shoulder pads and the helmets. We'll head out to Berea. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports for CLE. Browns have been training camp for a little bit under a week, but today, a milestone. They reached the day where you actually put on the shoulder pads and get after it. For some, the first real day of practice. Mari Cooper, minor injury, expected to be back. You see 18, David Bell, pedaling away on the bike. Deshaun Watson finds Donovan Peoples-Jones, who continues to have a nice camp. This time it'll be Watson to Jamarcus Bradley, a young wide receiver. Jacoby Brissett also in, getting a good share of the reps, finds Johnny Stanton, fullback, out of the backfield. And the Browns continue in pads for the first time with that. Let's welcome in Hayden Grove, Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Hayden, out in Berea for that first day. Hayden, what grabbed your attention? What'd you notice first day in pads?
Yeah, the thing I noticed today was that Jacoby Brissett was getting a couple more first-team reps than normal. Maybe the plan that they've laid out is finally coming to fruition, where Jacoby's going to get a little more attention with the first team. But Deshaun still played a lot with the first team, so I don't think it's going to change all that much in terms of the reps that they've gotten. But that would be my first observation would be Jacoby got some more reps to the ones today.
Anything else that stood out? I know, I was surprised yesterday that Jack Conklin came off the physically unable to perform list. Happy about it, but anything else jump out about it?
No, I mean, Jack was out from practice today. Jadeveon Clowney was out for practice today. Not a ton stood out today, other than, like you said, guys, making their way back and guys getting in pads. I mean, Michael Woods continues to make plays out there. He's a guy that's got a lot of passes, kind of finds himself in the right spot at the right time. But other than that, I mean, again, these guys are really just getting reacclimated. And today was the first day of pads, so they kept it pretty light, about an hour and a half of work today. So they want to kind of keep things light until they really get into the throes of this, this August.
So you mentioned Jacoby Brissett. Brissett started for Tom Brady during the Deflategate 4-game suspension. He also filled in for Andrew Luck when Luck unexpectedly retired from the Indianapolis Colts. Both Jacoby Brissett, Kevin Stefanski talked about his experience, what he's gone through in the NFL, and how it will help him this year with the Browns.
It's been my situation throughout my career. Nothing that I'm unfamiliar with. Always being ready to go whenever my number is called, and that's the case in this point now.
At what point are you going to need more reps with the first team, since it looks like you're going to be the starter in week 1, potentially week 1 through 6?
I mean, we have a plan in place, and we believe in the plan, and we're going about the plan the right way, and and that'll come when it comes.
You're right, Tom. He's been in some different positions already in his young career. He has a very good way about him, as I'm sure you guys notice just being around him for a little bit. Very, very intelligent, a very good leader, has the ability to make plays on the practice field, help in the meeting room, be accountable throughout the weight room, if you will. He does all the right things.
And Hayden, when you talk about Jacoby Brissett, that's a guy that the Browns are going to need good things from, at least for as many games. It may be 6, heck, it may be more, but it's going to be 6 at least. Checking in, and we lost our connection with Hayden Grove out in Berea at Browns training camp. So Jacoby Brissett talking about how important that experience is. He's been a guy that's been called on to play in unexpected situations. We mentioned the Tom Brady Deflategate thing, as well as when Andrew Luck retired. So, Hayden, that experience has to make it so it's more of a mental thing and just being ready to go for Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I apologize for the technical delay. But yeah, it feels like Jacoby Brissett has been there before. He's very confident in what he does. That's kind of what he explained to us today, that he basically said that so many people around him have confidence in him. Who is he not to have confidence in himself? So he's done this before. He's been in this situation, and he kind of just says that's the mark of his career, is to be ready to play like you're the starter, to feel like you're the starter, to prepare like you're the starter. So he has that confidence and that mindset that he's essentially the starter going into every season, every snap, because he literally is one snap away from playing at all times. So you're right. And Kevin Stefanski's right about the way he carries himself. He carries himself extremely well. He seems to be a very good leader, seems to be a guy that, people naturally gravitate towards, has a really, really good kind of head about him. So I agree with everything that was said about Jacoby Brissett. I think he can come in and get the job done for 6 games, or, should it be a little longer?
Now, if you want to look at Jacoby Brissett and things to be excited about as far as the Browns go. So when you're filling in for Tom Brady's skill set is pretty unique. Andrew Luck's skill set is pretty unique. Jacoby Brissett's skill set is more closely matched, and I'm not saying he's Deshaun Watson, but they do some of the similar things. So I would think this offense could potentially be a little more friendly to Jacoby Brissett and what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree that he and Deshaun Watson have a similar skill set. I think that's kind of a generalization. I think Jacoby is more of your typical pocket passer, a guy that, just knows the game inside and out and kind of finds a way to, to get the ball in the right spots. Not a guy that's going to, necessarily light it up for you, but, he's going to move the ball down the field, give you an opportunity. So I think that Kevin Stefanski, his job is to, as it always is for anybody, is to cater your offense to what your guys do best. So they're going to run the football a lot. I expect a lot of play action. Maybe not as much zone read as you're going to see with the guy like Deshaun Watson. Not as much, lateral movement. But I expect a lot of play action. And I expect Jacoby Brissett to just make the right read, make the right decision, make the throw necessary. I don't think they're going to be a ton of spectacular wow plays from Jacoby Brissett, but that's not what they need. They need, to keep the chains moving, to get the ball down the field, let their offense, let their run first offense kind of take over while he's there.
And don't put your offense and your defense in a bad spot with turnovers, and that is something Jacoby Brissett does exceedingly well. Another guy that talked today, and he's important, Nick Harris, on assuming the role as the starting center and also kind of bulking up some much-needed strength and muscle.
Nothing's different. I'm just, approaching every day, trying to get better, thinking a couple things every day to, improve and, try and just bring the group, the O-line, the offense all together so we're just one cohesive unit. And, I tried this offseason to really take care of my, my body and try and change my body composition, put on some weight, put on some muscle. So I do think so. Going through these practices, I've realized, I feel a little bit different, a little bit heavier, and, it feels good. So I'm just glad to, know that work is, paying off, and, yeah.
Hayden, how important is Nick Harris as the starting center getting his first shot to be the guy this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's the anchor of that offensive line. The center is kind of the captain of the whole ship. He makes things go. He runs the offense. So it's a very important thing for Nick Harris to be ready and to do his job well. I mean, it's important for him to not only, block well, but it's more important for him to know his calls, know the defense, know the fronts, have a great familiarity with Wyatt and Joel up front. It's his job to kind of anchor that whole unit. So it's a very, very important position. J.C. Tretter was never really a Pro Bowl type player, but a very steady, strong player. And Nick Harris, they need him to be that. They need him to be intelligent. They need him to be essentially up front and just have everything going on in his mind. So that's going to be difficult for a young player, but he's spent enough time in that room with those guys to understand kind of the language and how things work.
Yep, and Bill Callahan, offensive line coach, one of the best in the NFL, so that will help him along as well. Hayden Grove and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also take a look at some punishment that the NFL handed out to an owner today. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one about the Deshaun Watson suspension.
Hi, this is Randall McKissack, frequent caller, lifelong Browns fan. So now that we have the decision for his suspension, I'm looking forward to a great season. I think that the Browns could make the playoffs. But my comment is this. So all the national media attention has, undressed that man, accused him of awful things. I'm just curious to see how concerned the national media is going to be when it's another owner or the next time it's the next player, especially if that player is not a black player, how the national media is going to attack that young man for any youthful indiscretions that he might make. I mean, because this has just been so much overkill from the national media against Deshaun Watson. He didn't break any laws. He wasn't found guilty of anything. But he's the Browns quarterback. He's going to take us to the Super Bowl. I think next year we're winning a chip, and I'm looking forward to him. He has my support. That's just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And Hayden, when we talk about this, we'll get to the what they did with the owner today. But I think that was part of Sue Robinson's decision. There's a disparity in how they deal with owners or other league personnel versus how they deal with players in terms of the suspensions, discipline, if you will. And I think that's why it ended up with 6 games, because you looked at what they did with the owners, and that's how she arrived at 6 games, and the national media thinks 6 games is too few. But you had owners who were guilty of similar things that got no games. So that's, I think, how she settled at 6.
Yeah, I mean, it was precedent. It was kind of the fact the NFL has been soft on this, and then all of a sudden, a major player, a guy that has a tremendous reputation outside of this incident or these incidents, which obviously overtake that, but a guy that's been tremendously respected and loved around the league has this issue, has this this pattern of behavior, and they want to take it somewhere it hasn't been, and you can't just open up a new bottle every time, something happens like this. Basically, they're trying to take the cat back out of the bag when they put the cat in the bag. You can't do that. You can't, you have precedent set. You wrote a CBA for a reason. She basically called out and said the NFL doesn't have a good CBA written. There are a lot of holes in it. The precedent is really soft in prior years. So you just can't come out and say, hey, all of a sudden, now because it's a big major player, because this is a guy that, that is a superstar in our league, now we want to really suspend it. We really want to come down on it because the public perception is so bad. Well, you can't do that. So I think she's right. I think she's right in that, next time it'll be a little different because Deshaun's kind of the first one going through this. But next time, the hammer better, or you better write a better CBA so that the rules can kind of allow you to come down harder than what you've done in the past.
And along those lines, today the NFL announced that they stripped the Dolphins of their 2023 first-round draft pick and 2024 third-round pick for violating the integrity of the game. Dolphins owner Stephen Ross also suspended through October 17th, fined $1.5 million. That was not for the tanking of games. That was the suspension, and the draft picks are forfeited for tampering relative to signing Tom Brady and getting Sean Payton to be their head coach. Now, Albert Breer says, interestingly enough, owner Stephen Ross's suspension ends the day after the team's Week 6 games, which is the day Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson's suspension ends. Central to the NFLPA's defense of Watson was the double standard between owners and players. And you saw that's a pretty significant discipline coming down to the owner. Not the fine. The fine, $1 million or whatever, and being suspended means he has to watch his team play from his yacht or wherever. But losing the first and third round draft picks, that's how you deal and discipline owners.
Yeah, and I think maybe, the NFL saw that and said, well, now that we've kind of been, for lack of a better term, we've been kind of, hit by Sue Robinson saying that we haven't done a good job. Well, now we're going to come down hard on the owner. Well, okay. I think that's a little bit different. I think that's actually their kind of way of saying, all right, we're going to figure this out. We're going to try to balance it out a little bit. But it's still hard to punish an owner. I mean, unless you really significantly hit their wallet or you really significantly hit the draft picks. I mean, I think the Dolphins still have another first round draft pick that year. So it's like, is it really that? It's significant. There's no doubt it's significant. But it's still not the same as, your franchise quarterback sitting out for 17 games, which is what they wanted. So, again, it's a very, very different thing. And I think they're going to only continue to try to make it more balanced for everybody.
Yeah, which was what the goal of the NFLPA was when they collectively bargained that. So I agree with you. But, how many hundreds of millions of dollars would you have to fine an owner to make it hurt? I mean, don't forget, Stephen Ross is a guy that had an F1 race that, I think I read somewhere that the F1 race that he hosted in Miami made more than he makes in a year with the Dolphins. So that'll give you an idea of the amount of money that we're talking about. All right, let's take a look. 3 secret weapons for the 2022 season from Dawg Pound Daily. Number 3, Jakeem Grant, kick returner, wide receiver. We'll come back to him. Number 2, Harrison Bryant, the tight end. And number 1, linebacker Jacob Phillips. And Hayden, I think Jakeem Grant is a guy that the Browns signed him. He's a fantastic kick returner, one of the best in the league. That will upgrade the return game. I think he's underrated with how they could potentially use him as a gadget guy, and he's got speed. You try to get him in the open field, and good luck tackling him.
I mean, they're going to have to. I mean, you look at Anthony Schwartz being out. Amari Cooper was out today from practice. They don't have that much in that receiver room. That's just the honest to God truth. They don't. So I would say that, they really need to use him and use Demetric Feldman and use some of these gadget guys because they don't have the big downfield threat. They don't have the big kind of target guys that you normally see. So, yeah, they're going to have to be creative in this offense. Kevin Stefanski's going to have to find ways to use Jakeem Grant. He's going to have to find ways to use Demetric Feldman. He's going to have to find ways to use Anthony Schwartz. Anthony Schwartz is a really fast kid. So, I think Jakeem Grant is a really, really big part of this offseason for the Browns. They wanted a guy who could shore up their return game, but also, again, a guy that can help their offense, kind of an upgrade over JoJo Natson, if you will. And then Jacob Phillips, I think, is going to be spectacular. I think he's going to come out and kind of show that he's going to be a big part of this Browns offense. Obviously, last year dealt with a torn bicep and was out for a while, or I don't know if it was a bicep or something in that chest region. But anyways, he was out for a while, came back. And I think he's got everything you want to see in a linebacker. He's got speed, he's got size, he's got strength. He's exactly what you want to see. So I really have a lot of faith in him. And then Harrison Bryant, David Njoku said it himself. I mean, it's been night and day for Harrison Bryant, what he was and what he is now. I mean, you just look at him, he's a lot bigger than he used to be, a lot stronger, seems to understand the game better, good pass catchers. So those 3 guys I think are great fits for, key looked X factors for this Browns team.
All right, Jacoby Brissett also today talking about kind of developing that chemistry with Amari Cooper, and keeping in mind Brissett going to play at least 6 games if Deshaun Watson is suspended for 6. Here's what he had to say about that number 1 receiver, Amari Cooper.
I mean, he's everything is advertised. What you see on film, and to be a part of it and come out here and see him work and prepare and have those conversations of why does he do certain things at certain times, and to see that his plan works is extremely cool. And he's been fun to work with. He works hard. So like I said, I mean, he's getting better in this offense. It's new to him too. So, but you can see, when his confidence is going and when he's getting going, it's fun to watch.
And Hayden, you talked about it. They're going to really need a big year from Amari Cooper, just because you got Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Then there's a whole lot of questions.
I mean, there's a whole lot of questions in general. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Amari Cooper's a great guy. I think he's a hard worker. I like the fact that he kind of just keeps his head down and goes to work. But I want to see it. I mean, he's kind of a prove-it guy to me. I'm not sold on him being this number 1 star wide receiver. I'm just not. He's been traded from Dallas. He's been traded from Oakland. I mean, he's had some good seasons, but I want to see it. I want to see it in Cleveland. I'm not convinced. He's not super fast. He's not super. He doesn't have amazing size. He doesn't have amazing speed. So can he just get open? Maybe, but I want to see it. So I'm not going to just sit here and say that he's going to be great right off the rip just because of what he's done. I do want to see him prove it out there, because I think he gets a little too much credit for what he's done in the past and not what he's done in the interim.
Yeah, it's fair enough, but it's hard to argue. They need Amari Cooper to be that number 1 guy without question. Because, I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones is young and ascending, but Cooper's their only guy that's done it at the NFL level consistently.
Yeah, you're exactly right. 100% right. I mean, he's been a guy that, really worked well in Oakland at times, really worked well in Dallas at times, but also, also had his moments where you know, things weren't so good. So he's been hurt, injury prone too. So all these things are things you got to look out for.
Yep, you need the production and you need the consistency, especially this year. Hayden Grove and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll come back, head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also take a look at a couple position groups with the Browns. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Deshaun Watson suspension.
Hey, this is Cassius, the quintessential Cleveland Browns fan. I'm hearing the public outcry outside of Cleveland, and they don't like the fact that Deshaun Watson only got 6 games. I think we're going to be in for a fight. I think the league is going to appeal it, and we're going to end up having to go to court. So my question is, if we go to court and there's an injunction that can Deshaun Watson still sit out the first 6 games just in case the judge upholds what the suspension is? Or would he play the first game of the season, just, would he be active from game 1 if there's an injunction? So I think he needs to sit out the early games, because if they come back with any type of suspension, the judge in the middle of the season, we don't want him to miss those games. But I'm thinking the league is definitely going to appeal it, and Roger Goodell is going to increase the punishment, and then we're going to have to go to court. What's your thoughts on that? Bo Brown.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Hayden, it would be relative to whatever the union appeals. Like a lot of times when you appeal it, you will seek the injunction so you can play. I know where Cassius is going. He wants him to sit out the first 6 games because those look like the easiest part of the schedule. It would be up to however they appeal. So the appeal is usually separate from an injunction. You usually appeal the decision and then you seek an injunction to allow the player to play. That's usually how that works, but again, it's all how you manipulate that appeal, or taking the appeal to court, if you will.
Yeah, I can't lie, Dave. I don't know much about any of this stuff. I mean, I focus on the X's and O's, so I just kind of, if he's going to be out 6 games, he's going to be out 6 games. I understand they might appeal. Maybe it'll be more games. But I think he wants to get out there as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and if that means that he's got to sit out 6 games, then sit out 6 games. And maybe if the NFL does appeal, maybe he would fight it, and he would find a way to get back into court and sue them, and then he'd be right back on the field earlier. So it makes sense. I think that everybody just wants to put this behind them. The NFL wants to put this behind them, and the longer this drags out, the worse it gets.
All right, let's take a look at defensive line. We'll take a look at the depth chart. This is from our lads, and here is the depth chart. You look at it, you got Garrett and Clowney at the ends, and then there are a whole lot of young guys. As you look at it, you got Elliott, Bryant, Winfrey, Togiai, Sheldon Day, Logan. Who are the guys that you think need to step up on that defensive line if the Browns are going to do what they want to do defensively?
I mean, you're looking at it. Taven Bryan's got to play well. Jordan Elliott's got to play well. Tommy Togiai's got to play well. I mean, they don't have a ton up front. I want to see Chase Winovich have a bounce back year. Stephen Weatherly is a guy that kind of has been, under the radar, but he needs to play well. Isaac Rochelle needs to come in and play well. Like everybody on that defensive line needs to put in their best because, they just don't have the talent outside of Miles and Jadeveon to get this thing going. I mean, obviously you can have help when you have guys like Jacob Phillips and you have guys like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah back there that can always help your defensive line to have that back, that linebacker unit play well. But, there's not a ton of depth there. There's not a ton of that that you're super confident in. So it's going to have to be kind of a wait and see thing.
And again, it's young guys, but there is the opportunity. If you're one of those guys, if you go out and play like the Browns think you're capable of playing, you're going to end up having a lot of snaps and the opportunity to create a nice role for yourself. Let's take a look at this Pro Football Focus. 8 NFL teams' best blocking environments for their running backs. And one of them, the Browns. Cleveland rosters arguably the best backfield in the NFL. Part of the reason anybody who carries the ball for the team has success. Outstanding blocking. They do mention Nick Harris moving in there. And you see the deep backfield. They mention Chubb, Hunt, Johnson. Don't forget the rookie Ford. But yeah, this is a reason that I think the Browns can be okay with their backup quarterback is because pretty good offensive line, really good running backs.
Yeah, I mean, they really do. They have a great unit, 100%. They have a really, really nice unit, and they have a great, they have a lot of chemistry up there. I mean, Joel and Jedrick have played together. You've seen a lot of Wyatt and Jack Conklin. Wyatt's also played with Chris Hubbard as well. So again, I think Nick Harris is going to fit in pretty smoothly. I'm not really worried about that. I think he came in last year at times and played really well against Green Bay, showed what he can do, and then added some weight this offseason to kind of, keep him more sturdy. So I'm not at all worried about the Browns running game. I think it's going to be just as good as they want it to be. My worry is that they don't have enough weapons for Deshaun Watson. They don't have enough weapons for Jacoby Brissett. So will that affect them? It might not. Maybe Deshaun Watson will just make those guys a lot better. I don't know.
Hayden Grove, as always, thanks so much for the time. Hayden out training camp in Berea, giving us his insight. Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Hayden.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great day.
All right, Hayden Grove, make sure you read them, pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily will join us talking a little wide receiver for the Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Sports for CLE continues. We continue talking Browns. First day of pads out at training camp in Berea. Without question, the Browns wide receiving group banged up. Anthony Schwartz has missed time. David Bell on the physically unable to perform list. Amari Cooper didn't practice today. None of them expected to be serious, but we do see this from Aaron Wilson. Will Fuller, veteran wide receiver, being monitored by multiple NFL teams per league source, but is regarded as more likely to join a team later in the preseason. And then on the back end of that, Brad Stainbrook, Orange and Brown report, Browns have not discussed signing wide receiver Will Fuller at this time. With that, let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily. Casey, that's not really a surprise. I mean, the reason the Browns are tied to Fuller is because Fuller had some success with Deshaun Watson. Actually had a good deal of success with Deshaun Watson, and there's a little bit of chemistry there. But it appears Browns want to get a look at the young guys, and then you wait and see what happens when everybody cuts down to 53.
Yeah, Will Fuller has a skill set that's going to be coveted in the league. You're talking about a real fast guy, 6'1", 185, run 4.3 speed. Actually, it translates to football. He's excellent at tracking the ball. When available, he's one of the better field stretchers in the league. But that's the key, when available. We're talking about a player heading into his 7th year, and he hasn't played in more than 11 games since his rookie season.
Yeah, and again, the Browns, they want to see what they've got. They want to see Donovan Peoples-Jones. They want to see Anthony Schwartz, if he can get healthy. They want to see David Bell. And you can't really get a feel for that until you see full speed, pads on, and those kind of things with younger guys. Now, it is concerning that they're missing time early in training camp. That's baseline stuff that you can't really catch up with.
Yeah, it's concerning to see them. It's going to lead to a slower development along the season, but it's also giving opportunities to guys like Woods and Hartley and Demetric Felton, and by all accounts, these guys are taking advantage of those extra reps, and that might push them further up the depth chart. So the Browns are doing it right. Don't panic, just let it play out. Let these younger guys get more reps, and then ease the other guys back in as they're ready. Yeah,
and again, you want to be careful with injuries, especially early in camp, because if you're not, they tend to linger. All right, 5 surprises from week 1 of Browns training camp. This from Dog Pound Daily. Number 5, Jack Conklin returns to camp early. Number 4, Michael Woods II can play. We've alluded to that. 3, Demetric Felton. He's been showing up. 2, Cade York. Might be better than advertised. The rookie kicker has been drilling long field goals. And number 1, Deshaun Watson has support around Berea. I don't know about you. I was pleasantly surprised with Conklin coming off the physically unable to perform list as early as he did. I know Kevin Stefanski said he was making progress, but coaches always say that.
Yeah, I'm always leery of camp speak when you hear that someone's really dialed in or they've transformed their bodies or they're living at the facility. Well, we heard of those things with Jack Conklin, that he was ahead of schedule and practically living at the facility. And by all accounts, those things came to fruition. We're seeing Conklin on the field already. I don't expect him to see any kind of action, but the fact that he's already out there coming off a torn patellar tendon, that's tremendous. I mean, that shows the work ethic he's put in. And he's also himself trying to shake a stigma that he's injury prone, so he's putting all of his efforts into being 100% to start the season, and this team will be better off for it.
Yeah, with any of the offensive linemen that have been in the league as long as he has, you don't need to do anything other than be there and help the young guys out. Michael Woods, you mentioned him. That's a guy that Browns thought enough to use a draft pick on, and by all accounts, he's showing up.
Yeah, and at the time when they drafted him, it was kind of a head scratcher. He wasn't on people's boards, just in the way that if you thought they were going receiver, you thought they were going early, and then they ended up taking Woods late, and it was kind of puzzling. But all he's doing is making plays. They saw something in the young man, and he's rewarding them early in the camp here. So I think it's very likely that he carves out a role as that 5th receiver if he just keeps on the trajectory that he's on.
Demetric Felton, by all accounts, having a good camp as well. But that's a guy, he's going to have to continue to do that because there's his role as a return guy taken away by Grant. Now is he a receiver? Is he a running back? Running back room is full. Stefanski said he was a football player. You can find ways to get them in, but the avenues for him making the team are kind of dwindling.
Yeah, just rewind to the beginning of the offseason when the quotes came out that they were going to strictly put him at running back. And that seemed like a death sentence right there. Like, no doubt he's a talented running back, but that's not what his value is as a player. He's someone that you can move around, not just out of the backfield, but he can play the slot, and he can also be your backup returner now that you have Jakeem Grant, and it kind of allow him to develop into that. And you're looking at a player like he doesn't have a defined position, but if you're telling me he's the 5th running back, 6th receiver, and backup kick returner, that seems to me to be a pretty valuable role. But he's going to have to work for it every day to get it.
Yeah, and keep in mind, and in case folks don't realize, that 52nd, even the 51st, 52nd, 53rd guys on the roster, you better be able to contribute on special teams. Be it a gunner, you better be able to tackle, you better be willing to run down and go crazy. Cade York, by all accounts, you keep hearing things and seeing things, and Browns fans should be smiling. This guy, again, I know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until it's the regular season, but it's nice to have a kicker that you can see making 50-yard field goals regularly.
Yeah, he's becoming the David Bell, where he wasn't dropping a pass. Cade's not missing a kick, and it's not going unnoticed. Every day you log on to Twitter, you're going to see Cade York 6 for 6, 5 for 5. These fire drill sessions, you know what I mean? Everything sounds super promising. And if you're a Browns fan, it's been a revolving door since Phil Dawson left, and they've been looking for that next guy. And it's, at this point, like you said, it doesn't matter until we get to the regular season and they're going through the uprights. And there's not a bigger pass-fail position than kicker. Either you make it or you don't. So he's going to have to go out there and do that, but he's off to a great start so far.
And the other thing that's impressive is the Browns kind of eliminated all the competition, and he hasn't taken it, by all accounts. Now, we don't know for sure. By all accounts, he has not taken anything for granted.
Yeah, they took all the competition away, said, hey, young man, this is your job. But, you still have to go out there and do the thing. And York's been nothing but net ever since he's got on the field. So, as a kicker, it's huge psychologically. You got to see it going through the uprights, and that's all he's been doing.
And the other one, Deshaun Watson supported around Berea. That really doesn't surprise me. I think the national media is more surprised by that than the folks around Cleveland.
Yeah, I saw some other reports saying that he was getting mixed reviews and coming out and boos and cheers, and then you see the video and it's nothing but cheers, and you're seeing fans mob to get to him, and he's signing autographs after practice. People are excited, and you don't have to be mad about that. Like, I know some of the national media want to tell you how to be a fan. I wouldn't dare do that. If you want to get behind the quarterback and you want to support him, by all means do it. He's on the team, and go ahead and put your arms around him.
Yep, he is the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns and likely will be if things go the way the Browns want it to for the next decade, minus whatever time he's suspended. Case Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll hear more from Jacoby Brissett as well as Kevin Stefanski. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. One thing we know is the Browns are likely to play at least 2 quarterbacks. Browns fans are used to that, but Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, based on the Watson suspension. Brissett talked about how the offense will look with him as the quarterback.
Still a new team, so getting comfortable in the offense and figuring out what those things are is what we're out here doing. And I'm sure when Coach Stefanski said it, he was talking about as he sees how training camp is going, that's how he'll tailor a game because we haven't played in the game yet. So excited to see what that'll be. Obviously, it's a work in progress, still learning, still getting better, still learning more of the offense and the players and the guys in a more competitive setting. Excited about that, and then we'll see how the game plan looks when the games come around.
Is there an inherent comfort level when you look at who you get to hand the ball off in the backfield with Bryant and Chubb? You got Njoku, you got Cooper. Just when you look at the playmakers around you, does that give you a lot of?
For sure. Excited about the talent that we have on this team. The way that those guys work, where they come in and prepare and get ready to go for practice. In preparation for games is exciting, and looking forward to continuing that growth.
And Casey, when you look at Jacoby Brissett, and I'm not saying that his skills are exactly like Deshaun Watson's, they more closely align with his. And you can say the same about Josh Dobbs. Now, Josh Rosen's a little different style of quarterback, but that should benefit Jacoby Brissett filling in, because this offense will look, I don't want to say the same, but it will look similar to the way it does with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, there'll be similarities for sure. And though, you're not going to see him in pistol as much with Jacoby, and they won't be running as many RPO reps. But there's going to be a lot of stuff that's just, you're going to copy and paste. You know what I mean? It's just going to be the same offense. Jacoby's going to be the guy running. And they touched on it there. The engine that runs this team is going to be the running game with Chubb and Hunt. You're going to have those guys behind Brissett. That's going to take a lot off him and just kind of allow him to steer the ship and not have to be the engine so much.
Yeah, and you can roll him out. I know he is a guy that will throw from the pocket, but he is mobile. That he is a mobile quarterback like Deshaun Watson, like Joshua Dobbs. And that's something that the Browns wanted to do, Kevin Stefanski wanted to do, but they couldn't quite ever unlock it a season ago.
Yeah, Jacoby's a sneaky athlete because of his size. We're talking about someone who was a superstar high school basketball player. He has the prerequisite athleticism to make things happen and extend plays. And he's not also adverse to turning his back to a defense on play action. So it's going to allow for a lot of those boots to be, have a lot of chance for huge plays off those, especially if the running game's, full tilt. And Jacoby, he's durable. I think that's the big key for him being the backup, is you got a backup quarterback who's supremely durable. So it's not like something like you have to protect him in certain ways. He can take some shots. He can let guys slide off of him in the pocket, and he's athletic enough to hurt you if he does get outside the pocket.
So Kevin Stefanski talked about tweaking this offense to fit whomever's playing quarterback.
We have a pretty good understanding of both of their strengths, and then I think you use training camp in the preseason to solidify that game plan moving forward. But they're different players, so certainly you'd run some different plays.
How important is chemistry in the quarterback room?
Yeah, I think it's important in every room, Chris, but that quarterback room is unique. You're talking about a lot of football, and you're digging very deep into that rabbit hole of football, and it really can become graduate level type stuff pretty quickly. So I think when you have a room that really pushes each other, challenges each other, but also respects each other, I think it's important.
And again, it's going to be a challenge for Kevin Stefanski and the offensive coaches to kind of come up with what this offense looks like for Jacoby Brissett. They now have to do that, with the thought that Deshaun Watson's going to miss likely the first 6 games, maybe even more, pending that appeal.
Yeah, and I'm glad they have now to do that. I'm sure they were in the back of their mind. There was a huge section of what they were doing that was kind of preparing for this, but now they have the definite number. They can kind of go ahead and navigate practices and reps and get everything divvied up to get Jacoby ready to be, to be full go for these first 6 games and to tailor everything around him And not to mention, they already know the defenses they were playing and their strengths and weaknesses. Well, with Deshaun, you'd be able to manipulate things a certain way that you're not going to be able to with Jacoby in the same exact manner. So they're going to have to attack things differently. And they have time to get that together and, make sure that everything gets off without a hitch, because these first 6 games are wildly important. I don't think if you're anything less than 3-3, that you're starting off in a hole. So they need to make sure that they're giving Jacoby everything he needs to succeed.
Now, the other thing is you got to get Deshaun Watson ready to play, hopefully in Game 7. You got to get Jacoby Brissett. You have to have Josh Dobbs or Josh Rosen ready to play in the event Brissett gets. It's a challenge to get all 4 guys snaps and ready to go.
Yeah, limited amount of reps, and then you only got 3 preseason games. It's going to be interesting to see how they divvy that up. How much are we going to see Watson? He's not played in over a year already, so I think it's very necessary to get him some live bullets and in there, but you can't give him so many that you're going to be taking away from Brissett. And like you said, in the event that Brissett gets hurt, you have to have someone for plan C. So, how's that going to go? The competition between Dobbs and Rosen, it's going to be very telling how many reps get divvied up during these first 3 preseason games.
And it's important to note Deshaun Watson will be able to do training camp up to the beginning of the regular season, then the suspension takes place, can't be in the building for, as it stands now, the first 3 weeks, can come back the next 3 before he comes back after the 6-week suspension. Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, as always, appreciate the time. Great stuff. Thanks, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you read him, Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. Have a great night, everybody.